Alright guys, Shawn Ray here from Muscular Development Unleashed from Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm getting ready to head to the airport and catch my flight home after the FitCom. But I wanted to talk about something that just kind of came across my plate over the weekend that a lot of people are chiming in now. The marvelous one, Melvin Anthony, a former workout partner of mine, a guy I met back in 1994 from my mentor who got me started in bodybuilding, John Brown. John brought Melvin Anthony over to my house after I got second place in the 94 Mr. Olympia, just pretty much to show Melvin the fruits of my labor at the time, to show him the finish line of what a body of work, hard work and effort and dedication looked like. He brought him up to my house, took him out of my garage, showed him my cars. Melvin, obviously, he already knew who I was, but he was underwhelmed by my size. He wasn't overly impressed with how small I was by comparison, and he thought at that moment that becoming Mr. Olympia or a professional bodybuilder was going to be in his future. Started working out with Melvin from time to time. Seemed to be very ambitious and very hungry for knowledge. He was a troubled youth. My former training partner, Mr. California and NPC National Overall Champion 1989, Troy Zucolato, actually was Melvin's youth counselor. Melvin was in a teenage delinquent development program, and Troy was a counselor there. And Melvin was one of his pupils. So my training partner, Troy, had run-ins with Melvin when he was a teenager out in Riverside, trying to steer him straight. And now here we were, fast forward, in my house, talking, showing him the medals and the accomplishments. And he was holding my Arnold Classic trophy from 1991 and just talking shop. And we started working out. And the guy was very hungry and ambitious. But you can tell something was different about Melvin. Melvin was he wasn't a fast learner. He liked to do things his way. And the gym was a place of play and fun, where for me it was a place of business. We had two different ideologies about trying to become the best bodybuilder in the world, and ultimately he started to train with Milo Sarchev and some other guys, and won the USA's. I was there when he got his pro card and became known as the Marvelous One. Great poser, great performer, and as the time grew on, our roads would cross, and Melvin would ask for my advice, and I would give it to him. I'd help him get guest posing gigs because he was a phenomenal guest poser. At the time, I was giving out $10,000 Best Poser Awards, of which Melvin won 2 of them. And long story short, he moved out to Venice Beach, started running with the wrong crowd, and got sidetracked, started using some recreational drugs, and I kind of lost track of Melvin. We reconnected at a time where he lost a contract, sponsorship deal he had, and I brought him on board with the company I was working with, Biotech Nutritionals. They gave him a 2-year, 6-figure deal, but we clashed heads because I was in charge of the athletes, and the last thing Melvin wanted to do was take advice and leadership and direction from me, and I was in charge of the athletes performing for that revenue, but Melvin didn't want to work for that revenue. He thought his name was sufficient for the salary, and eventually Biotech let him go, and he turned around and tried to sue him for $300,000 plus, and there was a settlement for $1,500. Melvin and I never really spoke much after that, but I did watch him go through a couple of marriages and some financial hardships. I know he was running with some people out there trying to make a quick buck, and he's just been sentenced to basically a 20-year sentence. He's got to do 10. He's got two 10-year consecutive sentences for carrying a firearm while on probation, and drugs with the intent to sell, and he was also a drug user himself. He was already on record as being a drug user of Nubane and GHB, and had some financial problems, lost his house, lost his car, and the last thing I heard, he was out in Mississippi detailing cars, but now we know he was out in Mississippi dealing drugs, and he got caught for it, and he's serving some pretty hard time at 47, 48 years old. He's got 10 years minimum to serve behind bars, and it's a study in an example of someone who loses their way. I think Melvin got so far away from bodybuilding and his passion that it led him down the wrong path of destruction. And while we sympathize with Melvin's current situation, I mean, there's rules and regulations. You break those rules and regulations, you suffer. And he was not convicted erroneously. This is something where he's carrying a firearm while he's on probation. He had run in with the cops before. It wasn't his first time at the rodeo. And so what does that tell us? It tells us, as good as you can be with all that potential, it can be taken away like that. We watched Craig Titus go down the tubes, him and his wife Kelly Ryan murdering a girl. Sally McNeil, who had killed her husband, Ray McNeil, a bodybuilder. There's a lot of bodybuilders out there that are trying to figure it all out. And what I got to tell you, if you're in the throes of your career and trying to be the best at what you're trying to do, make sure that you have an eye on the future. Make sure you find some passion, something that gets you out of bed in the morning when the bodybuilding's over, that you are equally devoted to, that keeps you on the straight and narrow. It could be going back and finishing your education. It could be as simple as washing cars. But the last thing you want to do is get caught up with people doing things that kind of go against the grain. Dealing drugs and carrying weapons illegally, it leads nowhere good. And this is another example where in my history of bodybuilding that this is exactly what you don't want to do. So Melvin is a study of what not to do in terms of how you live your life and what you do with it post-competition. And if there's anything that I think I want to stress to the guys that are competing today, it's start setting yourself up for tomorrow while you're competing today. And these types of situations may not happen for you. For MuscularDevelopment.com, I'm Shawn Ray.